Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech looking at the top 10 evil cards today. And by evil cards, I know that there's a lot of subjectivity in this particular topic. These are cards that are extremely powerful, not necessarily cards, though, that should be banned. I think they definitely have a place in EDH, although some of them are extremely overpowered. Now, you could have easily called this video what to prepare for in EDH or what to counter in EDH, as it was suggested by a friend David in the Magic the Seattling group. This is really supposed to be an educational video of how to deal with some of the most broken cards that are out there in EDH and some of the strategies that those cards enable. There's three different criteria that we're looking at with regards to these cards. Number one, anything that really easily enables a combo. Enter the Infinite is a very strong example of that. Anything that lets you draw all the cards in your hand, clearly broken. Number two is those things that in and of themselves are extremely powerful given their particular mana cost. Now, Tooth and Nail looks like it's got a large cost, 7, plus 2 more for the Entwine, 9, that's huge, but when it lets you ignore 15 or 20 casting costs worth of different creatures and has a search ability in it, this card is way over the top. Third, we want to look at things that are just unfun to play against, that take the enjoyment out of the casual format that EDH is. Now, I'm not just going to point out bombs, because pretty much everybody can tell that cards like Enter the Infinite, Omniscience, or Iona should clearly be countered, and that you should have a way to deal with someone drawing their entire deck or locking you out of a color. Now, Iona is the only one on this whole list that I think should actually be banned, because she's so difficult to deal with for monocolored decks. But the other ones, their casting costs are high, and if you plan for it in advance, you can definitely stop people from casting these, or have a really good game plan if they do. In the number 11 spot, I have Taking Extra Turns. Now, I was a blue player growing up. I loved playing some Time Walk, and I definitely enjoyed taking extra turns in a competitive environment. But once you get to a casual environment, extra turns, especially in dirtily decks that don't kill you on the first one, is extremely annoying to play against. It may not seem like that big of a deal, but the fun drains out of the game really quickly. So if you're playing blue, you definitely can deal with that with some type of counter spell. And if you have access to something like Mana Drain, that's even better, because then you take back all the mana that you put into it and put it into something else on your own side. We're going to look at a few other answers to extra turns, and this really only made it into the level or into the number 11 spot because the extra turn just enables individuals to do a lot of the other broken things that are in this environment. EDH players love to draw cards, love to draw 2 or 3 or 4 per turn. It's very difficult to deal with these type of strategies if you don't plan ahead for them. Greater Good is one of the best card drawing engines out there and can lead to some pretty degraded combos. Biomantic Mastery, I think, is a little more balanced, and there's got to be a bunch of creatures out there to be able to use it, but it can draw huge amounts of cards. And Consecrated Sphinx, I think in a lot of ways, for the play group that I've been playing in recently, is the new Primeval Titan. It's the thing that comes out really early, gives someone a huge advantage, and then is a bit tough for people to come back from. But all of these cards can be dealt with if you have a strategy that specifically deals with someone drawing too many cards. Plagiarize is a really nice one. If you know that somebody is going to play one of these giant draw spells, having a card that turns all that drawn to your side is incredible. Chains of Mephistopheles, okay, maybe I didn't follow my budget that I normally talk about here in this video. I've already mentioned Chains of Mephistopheles and Mana Drain, but Chains specifically stops people from drawing extra cards and using them as anything except instants. I love a 2 casting cost enchantment that shuts down Jace and Brainstorm and Sphinx's Revelation extremely easily. Reusable Search. Now, I understand it's EDH, you got a 100 card deck, it's nice to have 1 or 2 ways to go get something that stops your opponent from crushing you. But when a card allows you to search again and again, survival of the fittest being probably the worst offender out there, then the game turns from something random and interesting into something that is boring and usually combination based. Fauna Shaman's a little bit more balanced and almost as broken as Survival. 2 or 3 turns though with a Fauna Shaman out, and somebody else is going to have the game locked down with an interesting combination of creatures. Eye of Ugin brings in search and really broken high cost permanence. So between these, you really need to have some way to deal with that search. Now, counterspells obviously work, but even Mind Sensor has to be one of my favorites because it also works on fetch lands and it works at flash speed. So somebody often loses a resource. You punish them for searching. Yeah, it turns you into a little bit of a target, but if you prevent them from grabbing that powerful thing that's going to end the game, the rest of the table should look over towards that Mind Sensor and think, you know, it's keeping that broken card, that $25 plus card in check. Maybe we should leave it around. Stranglehold is another great way to deal with that. Opponents can't search their library, and it stops extra turns. So this is a red answer, an enchantment that stops those blue decks from taking infinite turns or even several turns in a row on you. In the number 8 spot here, I've got skippers. I don't even know if this is the right thing to call them, but they're basically spells that let you jump way forward in the game and do something you probably shouldn't have been able to do for 10 or 15 more turns. Natural Order is a wonderful example of this. You can often play it on turn 3, sacrifice a Dryad Arbor, and then go get a World Spireworm, putting a 15/15 into play extremely early on in the game. Tooth and Nail, I know that it's a little bit high casting cost, as I mentioned earlier, but it allows you to put out 20 or 30 mana worth of creatures right away onto the battlefield, often one of those having haste. Now, Counterspells isn't the only way to deal with these particular cards. Anything that lets you steal those overpriced creatures, I think is clearly fair game. If somebody puts out something ridiculous like a Blightsteel Colossus, I don't feel bad grabbing that and hitting them in the face. Yeah, I'm not going to put Blightsteel Colossus in my EDH deck because I don't want to end the game that quickly, but I am happy to take it and hit my opponent with it. The number 7 spot, I've got infinite mana here. Ashdod's Altar and Palikron tell me right away that my opponent is likely playing a degraded combo deck. Even High Tide has the ability to make obscenely large amounts of mana extremely early. Now, one of the best things that you can do to try to stop these type of ridiculous combos is limit your opponent to 1 spell per turn. Often their kill condition is going to involve a second spell. Once in a while it may be an activated ability, but slowing them down with Curse of Exhaustion and Rule of Law often takes their combo and makes them find the answer to get it off. And you can play a real game of Magic with other people at the table while they have to deal with that. If you know that their particular kill condition is something that is activation based or an ability and not casting a spell, I think the best counterspell for shutting down combinations is Time Stop. It ends the turn. Everything on the stack is exiled. It doesn't technically counter the spell, so it works against uncounterable spells. Time Stop is a wonderful way to put balance in the game and allow the rest of the table a full turn to go after the person that just tried to go off with unlimited mana. Time Stop is one of the counterspells I highly advocate for in EDH. Reusable Bounce. Anytime a player starts to bounce permanents back to their owner's hands, this is something to watch out for. It's the sign of killing the fun of EDH by slowly grinding individuals out. Yeah, I play with Capsize and I play with Trade Run Writer, and it can be a great way to deal with a single individual threat. But when they start returning multiple permanents per turn, you need to have an answer in your deck. Mirian, the Moaning Well, is a wonderful way because if they go after your creatures, you can sack them in response, fizzling the effects of a Capsize. Claw of Gix will do that with everything on your side. Trade Run Writer can be a little bit more difficult to deal with, but usually you only get 1 or 2 uses out of it. I'd recommend some targeted creature removal, which I'm going to cover a little bit later in this video, for an abused Trade Run Writer. Mass Cycle. Now, Cards like Teferi's Puzzle Box and Windfall can be a lot of fun. They can get people a new hand and they can add some interest to the game. But too often I see these type of particular spells used in combination with other spells to set up a combo. So they take what they need from their current hand, cycle their lands and other items, and then go for the next piece of the combo. I love having something in my deck that allows me to punish this type of quick cycling when somebody is looking for a combo. An Underworld Dreams or a Spiteful Vision goes a long way to preventing someone from just drawing cards again and again and again looking for a combo piece. Reusable counterspells. These are obnoxious in EDH. Okay, maybe I've used Forbid once or twice. I might be a bad player from time to time. But it's only in my Sigwith Swords deck, and that's for playing against other unfair people. EDH is about mostly letting people play their game while also playing yours, having an interactive social game. And reusable counter spells take the fun out of the game. One person turns into Mother May I, and the whole table has to try to go after that person. They remove that person, and then you go on to another fun game of EDH where you go back and forth with the politics. The second you see one of these spells, get rid of them as quickly as possible. The blue decks that are playing reusable counterspells have often optimized their deck to where you cannot deal with it later, you must deal with it early. Price of Glory is one of my favorite ways to deal with reusable counterspells. Nobody is going to counter me if it's going to cost them land, and blue decks usually can't deal with that. Aura of Silence is also a nice way to deal with enchantment permanents, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. And having a way to bring back these low-cost answers is very important. Sun Titan's my favorite when it comes to white decks. Grand Abolisher is also very strong for dealing with things like Forbid, although it doesn't work as well against the Essence. In the number 3 spot, I have Comes Into Play effects. Often combos in EDH will have a creature linchpin as part of it. And people will go for mass card removal in EDH, such as Wrath of God or Damnation, but they leave out the targeted removal that is needed to disrupt combinations. Unmake and Path to Exile are two of my absolute favorites because it doesn't just kill the creature, it exiles them entirely from the game. So while your opponent is putting together a combo that includes a creature, you're able to shut that combo down pretty quickly. Now, you do have to deal with things such as their massive card draw also, but I really recommend putting some answers into your deck that are targeted and exile-based to prevent creature-based combos from beating you too early. In the number 6 spot here, I've got two of the more difficult cards to deal with because they duplicate abilities. And Riku is especially tough because he, as a commander, will often come out again and again. And if you don't have access to something like Hinder, which puts it on the bottom of your opponent's deck, then you have to figure out a way to deal with him. My favorite answer to these type of abusive copying effects is something like Nevermore. Prevent it from happening before they get to the table. You don't have to be in blue to stop these type of abusive effects. Once you've seen somebody's deck that includes one of these type of combinations, proactively stop the combo early. This is also great for dealing with those worst commanders, and I've got a whole video on really bad, potentially abusive commanders. Decks that are built around those commanders really hate Nevermore. Nevermore is a wonderful card for dealing with those. In the number 1 spot, I cheated. Yes, I put several different spells here, but they're blue enchantments. Blue has moved away from enchantments with later sets, and blue enchantments are nowhere near as powerful. If you're a new player, you may not understand how broken blue enchantments are. And I'm missing a blue enchantment here, so I'm actually going to go get it and add it. Opposition is broken. There was something about blue and enchantments in the past that I really can't explain, but blue has gotten some of the most broken enchantments of all time. Mind over matter, when combined with a way to tap and draw cards, allows somebody to cycle through their whole deck. Opposition, when combined with a deranged hermit, can lead to an army of squirrels that can tap down all of your individual permanents. Future Sight, along with a Sensei's Divining Top, allows you to spend 1 mana to draw a card. These cards, along with one of the most hated cards ever printed, Stasis, are some of the very broken blue cards that are out there as enchantments. And blue enchantments are some of the worst to have to deal with because they're often backed up by counterspells. My current favorite answers are Kosin Grip and Trick Mine for dealing with blue permanents and blue abilities because of the Split Second ability. Split Second allows you to put the spell on the stack and your opponent is not allowed to respond. This can often stop a combination midway through and allow you and the rest of the table a chance to deal with the ridiculous shenanigans that the blue player has been putting out. I like nothing more than destroying a blue player's stasis directly after they skipped their untap phase, and then untapping myself, putting out several creatures and killing them. Thanks, this has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech, looking at the top 10 evil EDH cards that you should prepare for and be able to deal with.
So easy when you're evil. This is the life you see. The devil tips his hat to me. I do it all because I'm evil. It gets so lonely being evil. What I do to see a smile, even for a little while. And no one loves you when you're evil.